Well, hello everyone. It's good to be back. Y'all had a wonderful weekend, and I'm gonna work some more on the paint today. Do some lighting, and as always, today's broadcast is brought to you by me, EzekielSchmidtArt.com. If you want to support the whatever it is I'm doing, you can go to my website, EzekielSchmidtArt.com. Link is in the description. Click on that and take a look around. Tell me what catches your eye, and that's all I really ask. So. Now that these little sponsorship bullshit is out of the way, ooh, I'm actually just gonna throw in some blue today. We're gonna do a little bit green. Ooh, no, blue, just blue for right now. There we go. Oh, I need some black too. Been really on that coke grind, you could say. Been trying to learn a lot about philosophy and spirituality. This past Saturday, I was listening to a lecture on Spinoza and Spinoza's ethics. Fascinating thinker. Very similar to kind of how I conceptualize a lot of stuff. And one thing I thought was very interesting is how philosophers throughout time, they all might have similar ideas, but there's always like a slight twist that makes it their own. But most of the ideas do not seem, at least in my opinion, that truly like original. It's not like they're bring something that hasn't been like said before. It's just said again in a different way. But I've heard lots of heard before that ideas have to be repeated because most of the time people weren't listening the first time, which I think is very true. Most of the time we aren't listening the first time, and that's why ideas have to constantly be repeated and reiterated. But why don't we listen? What in us drives us to not want to listen, to not want to hear someone else's idea? Is because we have so much faith in ourselves that we think that we know everything, which I don't think is true because a lot of people I've talked to, like they may be arrogant in some things, but then they'll always admit, I don't know everything. There's a, there are a few conversations I've had where people come off as know-it-alls. But even then, they seem to have a little bit of pliancy in what they're trying to say or what they're thinking about. It just seems as though it's degrees of thinking to me. Like people will entertain one thought, but only so far. And if you want them to get to think about something completely new, you're going to have to do it by degrees. And what do I mean by that? It's kind of like basically, it's actually what I've noticed by watching some of these cult documentaries. They'll start with things that you already believe in, and then slowly incorporate their own thing into it. And then before you realize it, you drank the Kool-Aid. But if they had said it outright the first time, no one would have ever listened to them. No one would. They would immediately know that it's bullshit. So there's a lot of the shifting, I think, of our culture and our thinking, for better and for worse, is done by degrees. And if you want to change people's minds, you can't change it all in 1 second. Sudden change is the most jarring, which is why I guess dictatorships take a while to get into effect. They take their time to get into power, and they only change a few things at a time, because then the people would react violently if they knew. But then, since they get used to it, they're like, "Oh, it's fine. It's just one thing." And then the next time, well, this wasn't that bad, was it? And then pretty soon they're making camps and they're hauling off people, and then like, well, those people were bad people anyways. But if it happened all at once, they would have more likely have stood up and be like, "Hey, this is not right." So when you inch people into things by degrees, they won't notice what's going on. There's that old um, it's a wives' tale, but the thing of you if you put two frogs in cold water and then slowly turn up the heat, they won't jump out. They actually will jump out. From because I looked that up once. I was like, that's not, that doesn't sound right. But the idea that it's talking about does have some credence, because if you think about times people in your life have stepped over the line just a little bit, and you might react a little bit, be like, "Hey, I don't appreciate that." They might back off, but unless you say something, they're going to keep testing those boundaries. There are people in your life that will constantly test your boundaries till you say something, and unless you say something at the very beginning, they're going to keep on going, 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 until one day they're just berating you, and you're like, "Hey, no, 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 you can't talk to me like that." And then they're like, "Oh, what do you mean?" But that's because you allowed them to disrespect you for so long that now setting a boundary, to them, they take that as, "Oh, you're being rude to me. I'm the victim here." When in reality, you're the one that's being played that whole time. So you got to be careful about making sure that when something happens, immediately respond. The first time, don't let things slide. If you let things slide, it becomes a slippery slope. Pretty soon you're at the bottom of the hill, having to trudge all the way back up. Because people will do that. They will test you in little subtle ways. And you might recognize it at first and be like, "Oh, that's just not, that's no big deal." It is a big deal. It really is a big deal. And you need to be aware of that. Because there are people that are psychopaths out there. There's people that will emotionally manipulate you. And so you got to be aware that sometimes you might be overreacting. But if your gut tells you something, it's better to listen to that than spend a really long time being in an abusive relationship or abusive friendship, being at a workplace that doesn't actually care about you and instead is piling work on you because they know you'll do it without complaining. And my camera went off. What's going on? Oh, there we go. So guard yourself. Be aware that not everyone is actually looking out for your interests, even if they pretend like they are, even if they pretend to be your friend. Some people just like the way that you make them feel rather than like you for who you are. And so unless you're doing things to protect your energy, you will have some pretty hard times. And speaking about energy, I've been reading or listening to an audiobook about Qigong, which is very, very interesting on how seriously that practice takes being a balanced person, takes just even things simple as walking, um, breathing, posture. It's interesting to see how many similarities there are between Eastern and Western mystical ideas, especially when it comes to the idea of storing magical energy. I think that because of the religions in the West that have put people to death for dissenting beliefs, there has been a stifling of people actually truly learning how to work with their own psychology without the aid of the village vicar, the village priest, the friar, the person telling you what God wants you to do, rather than telling you here's ways that you can contact whatever, how to use your intuition, how to build up energy and store it, what things are actually healthy for you, how to find out what's actually healthy for you, how to balance your life. I'm not saying that everything in Qigong is like profound or like going to like solve the problems of the world, but I think it's very interesting that we kind of lost our heritage due to these religions that were scared of anything that usurped the power of the priest. Took away the individual's ability to find gnosis for his or herself, to be independent. Oh man, what the hell's going on? I don't know what's going on with my stream. It's dropping frames like flies. But going back to the similarity between Qigong and Western, so like this might be because the Golden Dawn um, took so much stuff from like other religions. It's very syncretistic. Um, it reminds me of some of the breathing techniques and the visualizations. Kind of reminds me of things that I've heard from Golden Dawn rituals, where like you're inhaling air and then you're also visualizing light coming down. What the hell is going on with my computer? Anyways, but kind of like illuminating spheres around life and all that stuff. It reminds me a little bit of that, which probably is because all these systems are based on the same thing. But the idea of using breathing techniques in order to attain higher consciousness and to store energy is one that I've noticed in, like, I think it's in mystical experiences from people around. What the fuck is going with my computer? This is just annoying. Mystical experiences from different religions. Breath work seems to be very important, and especially the idea of rhythmic breathing to achieve these states. And I wonder what if, from a purely physical standpoint, what in our physiology can cause these states of gnosis that can be triggered just by conscious focus only on one part of our anatomy, which is our lungs, and one part of our behavior, which is the involuntariness of breathing, but making that voluntary to a degree. I wonder why that seems to trigger in so many different religions, different experiences that eventually culminate in some kind of profound wisdom. What do we tap into? Are we tapping into parts of the unconscious that can be used as kind of like a supercomputer to a degree? Um, I'm fascinated by that. Why is this such a common thing that just by doing one of the most simplest of actions and putting your attention to it, why does it create these states? What is in us that is triggered by these things? And what can that do for us as people just trying to live a life, just trying to get by? Because for all these mystical experiences that people have, there seems to be an underlying question of practicality. And then what? If I remember correctly, there's a saying, before enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. After enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. So why attempt to achieve enlightenment? Why do any of these things? What is the end purpose? Because if all things are one and all things are perfect, there's no need for effort. There is no need to try to do more than what already is. There's no need to do more than just live life. So why try? Is it just part of the natural drive of the universe to create consciousness and evolve that consciousness for it to be aware of itself? Is it similar to the why of why reproduce? Why do we do these things? It's because it's within us, because it's part of our nature to become enlightened at some point. And what is enlightenment? But recognition of the self as all things, the true self as being beyond the consciousness that resides within the body, but also the consciousness that resides within all bodies and beyond. The consciousness that doesn't speak, the consciousness that is unaware of itself. And once we are aware of that aspect of the universe, what much more is there? Why try to illuminate beings when they already will be illuminated and there's nothing you can do about it? Is true enlightenment to know that we are here to experience, not to change, because change is inevitable, and holding on to the idea of progression is what also holds us back from truly being enlightened. There's a red. If I remember correctly, in Hermann Hesse's book Siddhartha, in one part he talks about the three chords of attachment to like material things, attachment to like physical things, attachment to mental things, attachment to spiritual things. Like eventually you have to let go of even being religious, because there will be people that spend their entire lives as monks trying so hard to be something, trying to be holy, but that in itself is an attachment which keeps you tied to the wheel of samsara. Does that mean that the truly religious person eventually gives up religion? The person that really will attain enlightenment is the sinner, not the saint. The one who goes for experience. And enjoys experience, the suffering as well. Oh man, sorry. The suffering as well as the pleasure. Or does it have to, or is it to be enlightened to go beyond caring whether one is holy or unholy, whether one is achieving pleasure, gnosis, magical ability, to realize that you're just pretty much grinding in a video game and you can just relax. It's not that nothing matters, but all things will be accomplished. But that doesn't mean stop doing things. Do things. Because you are the universe. And what does the universe do? It does things. It loves doing things. So to truly be one with all things and to be enlightened, does that mean giving up the desire to give up desire and embrace your animal self as well as your spiritual self at the same time? To know that you are God experiencing the sensory world in a finite mode. But then brings us back to the idea of why. Why? Why does the all need to experience? Maybe it doesn't need to experience, but it does all these things because of desire, because of want, because of love. What is love but an attachment to things? When you love something, you become attached to it, and it's painful when it no longer is around, and you can no longer be with it. Is that why the universe is so fucked up? Because it loves so much? Because it loves so deeply? Because it has desire. And its desire is to experience. And the only way for it to experience is for it to limit itself. Because an all, I don't think an all could comprehend itself as an all, because to me that sounds self-contradictory. You can't be all things and experience yourself as all things without being partic- participating in the particulars. I don't know. I feel like I'm just rambling at this point. But what is philosophy really? Rigorous logic to prove stupid ideas. You can prove anything you want with logic, as long as your axioms already point to what you want to believe. You can prove anything you want as long as you start off with the premise that already supports your beliefs. And I think it's a very dangerous but true thing. And that comes into the idea of bias. What you want to believe, you'll make it happen. Why doubt is a very powerful tool. Because doubt checks ourselves sometimes. We want to really believe something, but then we have doubt. Sometimes it can work to the detriment of ourselves, but it can also keep us from wandering off cliffs and keep us from doing the dumb shit that other people say. Oh, do this, do this. I don't know, man. That doesn't seem right. I don't think that's true. A little bit of doubt is a powerful thing. It's a good thing for us too. Not all the time, but a good portion of the time. Should use doubt as a tool, but not let the tool rule your life. Not lead you into anxiety, but lead you into balanced thinking. And I think that you need to make sure that you're directing your doubt properly, though. So when you doubt stuff that doesn't like, when you doubt the obvious, you leave yourself open to being, oh, motherfucker. You leave yourself open to being manipulated. And And that's how people can gaslight you. So you check yourself before you wreck yourself, but I don't know, there's a lot to it. Hmm. So never take yourself too seriously. I think it's the main thing. Whether you become the Buddha, whether you become just an insect, whether you accomplish what you think that you are here to accomplish, don't take yourself too seriously because this one little part of you is not the be all end all if that is you. Because the real you is something you'll never be able to actually truly even see. The real you is your unconscious, your unconscious. And because it is the unconscious, it lies always in the dark. The minute light gets shed upon it, it becomes conscious, transforms itself. So, with all this, I'm not saying don't try to do better or try to reach enlightenment. I'm saying don't forget about the fact that you are alive and your purpose is to be alive. Getting caught up in all these spiritual practices. I do that as well. The point of the universe is to create life and to create things, not trying to make enlightened beings because it already is an enlightened being. All things are perfect as they already are, even with their suffering, even with all these things, because the universal desire is to experience nothing more. nothing less. And I will experience with or without you. You are unique, but you are not special. Even if you become the Christ, there's been a Christ before you. There will be a Christ afterwards. You become a saint, but you just be one of among many. You could become a god. There are other gods as well. Never put yourself on too high a pedestal. Because you're here to be here. So forgive yourself and your shortcomings, the things that you wish you, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Don't worry about that. Allow yourself to breathe. Take things seriously and take them lightly. It just depends on what you want to do. We're not all here to do the same thing. If the world was made of artists, there'd be no one to appreciate the art. You need the audience as well as the players. The world is both the stage and the actor. I'm done with this painting. Hope you all have a wonderful day. If you got this far, drop a little moon in the comments. Be a little secret message between you and me. See who actually watches this thing all the way through. And if you have any thoughts about my random thoughts, I'd love to hear them. It'd be fun. Open up a conversation. See y'all later.